All right,
So
awesome. So now we're recording. So yeah, why don't you start a bit with kind of your bit of your personal story and a bit of the story of TransEnd as well.
yeah, right. Thank you. So yeah, like when I was like in school, in my primary school back in 2015, 14, 15, I used to work in a lot of like non-profit organization as volunteers because social work was something that I really love to do. Yeah, so and I used to do work there, and like in my country, we have a lot of NGOs. Bangladesh is very much known for NGOs. We have the largest NGO in the world. We have a lot of non-profit organizations. So and then what I noticed that and none of these non-profits are working for the Hijra community, the transgender community of our country, and back that time I was still, I mean, I just came out, and also just inside my friend circle as a bisexual, but I really didn't know much of the LGBTQI organization, and I was like, okay, I mean, I came from to be honest, a middle class family, which is like very privileged. I am a person with, I mean, I am an able person. I was doing good in academics, and I was privileged, and it was fine of me being a part of the community. But then I felt like, okay, with the privileges I have and being a part of the LGBTQI community, I should look for, as you said, that there are particular community who needs more focus, and the whole LGBTQIA community. What I felt like the transgender people are the most marginalized. Um, and like as I was looking for NGOs or organization where I can contribute in, and then I found out there's none. There was this particular NGO, Bondhu Social Welfare, but they only hire employees. And I didn't meet the criteria to be a part of their employee. I mean, I was just in high school, so I couldn't join in that organization. But what I used to do is I used to go to the uh, search for stories, like because I don't belong to the trans community, right? So I do not know what are the struggle they go through. I used to search for, like to Google, but I would mostly find out the stories of the western side, but not the Hijra community of Bangladesh or the South Asian perspective. So I used to go to the local park. They're the Hijra people. So if you don't know the Hijra community, there a little bit context about the particular Hijra community. So back in 2000, back in the British colonization era, like before the British colonization era, in the Mughal era, the Hijra people were very much respected. They used to work in the kingdom. They used to work as kings, the emperors. Secret messenger, because they had their own language. They still have their own language, and they used to be the loyal servant, and they used to teach the princesses and queens how to dance and sing. So they were like very respected, and it was nice. They used to earn a lot and all. But when the British colonizers came, there's this a criminal tribe act under which the British, I think it happened in 1671. They criminalized the indigenous and the Hijra people, and also just after that there was Penal Code 377, under which LGBTQIA, the homosexuality, was criminalized. Still, the 377 penal code is still there in Bangladesh, which is very unfortunate. So yeah, this is how the marginalization of the Hijra community started. And just in 2019, after like centuries, Hijra people got recognized as Bangladeshi citizen. So that's horrible. Yeah, so and then so before 2019 I was like, okay, so I used to go to these people, and I used to hear these stories, how they are struggling, how they got abandoned from their family. We have almost more than a million, almost 2 million gender diverse population in Bangladesh, and it's not even recognized. The number is not recognized. I got to know the number from the local people. And these people, most of them, they are outcast from the society. They are abandoned from their family. They are not having proper they're not meeting proper human rights, the basic human rights. They and most of them, they are involved in sex working or the traditional way of begging, where they go to these bazaars. If you have went to the park, you can see them collecting money. Yeah. And so I started to figure out I was trying to figure out what are the main problems. And then I felt like um, to help them, or to them being socially empowered, they need to be, first of all, being economically empowered. I felt like that. And every time I was to talk to them, they're like, I don't really want to, go to the beg. I don't want to sex work. I want to live with respect. I want to. And I found some people who even has degrees. They have done their undergrad, they have done their A levels, O levels, and they have the skills. Like in my country, the social welfare ministry, they arrange trainings for the hijra people, the transgender people. But after the training, there is no follow up. I mean, I found transgender people who can sew, or who can um, who are very skilled in tailoring, but they don't know how to catch the market. They don't know how to get the customers, because customers, the cisgender people are afraid of them, right? They don't want to communicate with the marginalized cisgender community. So all this, so I started to figure out these loopholes. I figured out that skill is not a problem. The problem is actually scoping jobs, scoping earning source, because a lot of them, they're skilled already. There, some of them are very much educated only. So before education or skill, actually, we need to cater um, to their job, their employment sector. And this is how I started TransEnd. I So in 2017-18, I used to do most of these field works. And as you have already stated, how storytelling is important. I mean, I get to know literally that the only reason TransEnd, my organization, was born is because of the stories. And the reason why before TransEnd there were no non-profit organization solely working for their economic rights is because of the absence of these stories, right? So yeah, so this is how it started. And the more I used to hear the stories, the more I was like angry. Why there's no non-profit organization, or why there's no organization or platform working for their economic rights? I mean, I was like just 18, 19-year old. I didn't have the gut to start my own organization. I didn't have the enough experience. But then I felt like, no, I need to do something. And then 2019, I officially started TransEnd. I became one of the Ashoka Young Change Makers, and that sort of really boosted my confidence. I started to go to university, so I felt like, oh, I'm adult enough to to run an organization. I study in university now. Yeah, so our focal area was one, as I said, like employment, entrepreneurship, and of course training and sensitization program. So through the sensitization program, we do a lot of social media campaign where we uphold the stories of these untold stories. And we found this enormous reach in social media. And we realized, well, we are not alone. There's a lot of other Gen Z young people who, every time they're hearing these stories, we used to do webinars, Facebook Live, Instagram Live. We used to post articles, a lot of posters, where the hijra people, they are telling their stories. Not us, they are telling their stories. A lot of interviews. And then we started to highlight how they are marginalized of the marginalized, like how they have the suicidal and the other mental health issues way more than the cisgender people. And they have no, I mean, no, none of the, there's a lot of, right, mental health organization, but not giving any opportunity or aid to the transgender people. And I found, when we found out how the the transgender people are getting sexually harassed, rape cases, and every time, I mean, they got raped by the police. How are they supposed to get the legal help if they get the oppression from the people on power, right? So we found these stories, we started to highlight them, we used to do this social media campaigns. During the pandemic, we couldn't we had to pivot the our yeah, we had to postpone a lot of fieldwork. So what we used to do is we started to utilize the social media. So back that time we were having this enormous reach. A lot of people showed their solidarity, like, yes, thank you so much for like posting the stories. We didn't know that. I mean, transgender, the hetero people was very much tabooed just in 2017-18. People wouldn't talk to them, people wouldn't look at them, people would think that they are cursed. There are a lot of stereotypes and taboo related to the community. So every time we started to show the stories, like, look, they are human beings, they deserve these rights, and then people started to be like more sensitized. And also what these cisgender people used to say is, oh, they are getting money from us, they are vandalizing, they are not well mannered, they're ill behaved, all this sort of things. And we started to show the counter narrative. Like, we did this docu film series where we came up with real stories, and we sort of made documentary film on that, like small, like 3 minute, 5 minute, where we showed like why they are doing it. They have the stomach to feel, they have bills to pay, their mothers and fathers, their parents have abandoned them, so they need to do something. And if you want, and you are not giving them the job, so they have no other way but doing this begging and sex working, right? And then people are like, yeah, right, they deserve to have jobs as well. And then we started to work with the corporate sector, um, and like we worked with Patao, Food Panda, we have worked with Chaldal. So these startups, and like the corporate sector, we have worked with Daras, the Hyundai, the Fair Group, and then and they hire transgender people collaborating with us. So yeah, this how, and then we highlighted those stories. People were becoming inspired, like, wow, that's happened. So yeah, so while doing this, I mean, yes, I mean, we all us agreed that yes, storytelling is important, representation is very, very important. And I mean, we still fail to do that, though. I mean, we still do not have stories of transgender people who are disabled, or transgender people from indigenous community who are like more marginalized, and we are yet to reach them. As you say, that there's security concerns. Every time we find some transgender LGBTQI people from the indigenous community, they are very afraid to come out. They're very afraid to talk to in front of camera because of the security concern. And let alone the LGBTQI community. I mean, it's still there's 377 penal code. In 2016, there's two gay rights activists, Tonoy and Julhash Manan, who got brutally killed by the religious extremists. So even I myself, working for the for TransEnd, I in my social media I had to stay very low key because of my security concern. I was not this low key, to be honest, but then I realized we started to get so many online bullying, online harassment. I even got death threats in the social media. So, and then we are like, okay, we have to do things low key a bit. So in my social media, I stay low key, and I stay. I mean, my social media, I didn't still came out as a part of the LGBTQI community for the security concern. Yeah, so these are like very, very unfortunate how we cannot always highlight, or like can sometimes cannot get the stories because of the security concern. But then again, I think it's important, maybe in some other way, maybe blurring the face, maybe like not using their real name, stuff like that. Also, every time we came up with I mean, the organizations globally, what I have noticed, oh, then later on in 2020, I started to get to know there's actually a lot of organizations working for the LGBTQI rights, the queer rights, but they work under very, very low key, and they have just, small group of people in some Facebook group, which is like very private. But Transcend works very visibly. All of our social media platform are very visible. So, and I get to know them, this and why they work very under spot below spotlight is because after that incident of 2016, that murder incident. So when and then I noticed that most of these organizations are actually led by cis gay men. And most of here are cis gay men. Most of the people are like gay. Well, I couldn't find many like queer women here. There was very much lack of queer women representatives, and queer women representatives in the leading role. There's this very lack of it. Even a lot of queer people really invalidated my identity, and then realized how we have biphobia inside the queer community. So I felt like, well, bisexuality is another, like, we are marginalized as well. People do not recognize us. And yeah, queer women as well. So even inside the queer community, I felt like even when I started to notice and connect with the Western and other countries LGBTQ organization. Again, I saw like the gay men are in the leadership role, men, and the lack of, again, the queer women representation there. And again, the I found how even inside the gay men, a lot of queer people, how there's transphobia there. There's a lot of hijraphobia there, and hijraphobia is something that no other people in outside South Asia, outside India and Bangladesh will not realize what it is. So the more I started to get involved with this movement, the more I started to get, find out more of these challenges and loopholes and the don'ts and do's that you just said. I think about the don'ts and do's, what we need to, as I just said, that when we're working about with the LGBTQ community, especially the countries where still there's penal code 377 exist. First of all, reminding that the security concern. And for example, being a part of the queer community, I really do want to vocally work for queer rights, right? But I cannot. What I found out that, like back in 2019, we in Pride Month, we posted a Pride, rainbow flag thing, and oh my God, the amount of bullying and hate speeches we started to get that time. And then we realized that no, we cannot use rainbow flags or use the word LGBTQIA or queer in the social media. And because by doing this, we are making making us vulnerable to getting attacked, right? So for our own safety, for the sake of our own community, we didn't do that. And then we started to come up with like using these words, other acronyms like SOGISEC, SOGISEC, or using the word gender diversity in Bangla, it's like Lingo Boichitromoy. So using these words, which are more neutral, the mass people, we have to remind that, well, the mass people, just in 2019 the trans people got their voting rights, still there the people are still not sensitized, so we have to think that as well. So we use the neutral terms, gender diversity, as I said, for while doing the social media platform. The social media is very mass people's psychology is really difficult, right? So yeah, this sort of thing I get to and like sometimes we back in 2020, when I was younger, and I didn't know a lot of things. For example, I used to get very angry every time someone would post any transphobic thing, or someone would do a hate speech. We even have Facebook pages passionately spreading hate speech about TransEnd and about my team members. So I used to get very angry. I used to comment on those pages. Why are they doing it? Like as to become very emotional, and definitely it used to hamper my mental health very much. Anyway, so and then later I realized that me doing this comments, it's not actually changing anything, to be honest. So rather than wasting my time there being a keyboard warrior, I have to target my already already who are my allies already. I have to mobilize them. We have to work together. Me alone commenting there is not going to change a thing. So then I shifted my focus. So yeah, I learned so yeah, then I shifted my as you just said, like the storytelling telling thing again, and always highlighting the people that I mean, I sometimes, as chef, I feel very guilty sometimes being the CEO of an organization that works for the trans right. But I am not a trans person. So when somebody tells that what's my dream in the 10 years down the line about transcend, I always say that I want to see a transgender CEO in transcend. So I try to make sure in my team, the core team, we have enough inclusivity, we have enough transgender people, enough people from the queer community in my team. We for the last 5 years we do since it's a volunteer run organization, we have like am I talking so much?
No, it's fantastic. It's really
Yeah,
interesting.
okay. Okay, so we have like one it's a cohort, like in every year we have cohort and volunteer. We do this call for volunteers, people join, and then after 1 year there's like new volunteer join. So throughout the 5 years we had more than 500 volunteers. A lot of them, they belong to the queer community, and a lot of them they do not, but they're amazing allies. This is cishet allies, and I always tell them that look, we are not here to empower the trans community. We are uh, here to be the like the thing that our ancestors did. They didn't recognize the transgender community, so we are here to break this generational thing, and we are here to amplify their voice so that they can talk about their rights, and they because they have the potential to empower themselves. So we are not empowering them, they have all the potential. We are just making the platform that we haven't done in the last centuries. So that's what I try to. But now I want to what I wanted to tell is the dark side of the storytelling. What I have noticed that the tokenism even in the NGO sector, not only in Western but also in Bangladesh as well. Um, like uh, like in the West, we can see in Pride Month how the corporates they use the like the Pride flag, and then after the month it's just gone. There's no other actual thing doing for. They're just getting the corporate. They're doing capitalistic way using the thing showing that they are very inclusive but not. The same thing happens in Bangladesh as well. I feel like there's after 2019, in 2020 we have this first ever transgender newscaster, Tashnuva Anand, which was big news, literally in New York Times, in Washington Post, a lot of international newspapers they featured it. It was huge news, and Bangladesh started to like, oh yay, we are proud of her. She's a pride for Bangladesh, etc. And then it sort of become trendy for NGOs and some corporates to show that how inclusive they are. They started to do the small like training or some small things to show, hey, we are so inclusive, but which was not. Just maybe just like doing some interviews, it's not changing anything, but well, it's a start definitely. But I think that they can do more. they have the capacity to do more. And we started to hold them accountable for that. We started to work with them. We do a lot of advocacy programs for that. And about the NGO, I mean, yes, we know about the corporates, and yeah, well, they're capitalists. That's that. But the NGOs, it just hurts. Breaks my heart. I didn't know this. Like there's such loopholes even in the NGO sector. Um, for example, in um, like when I see that they have this, like how the NGO works. They get funding, right? They have donors, and in Bangladesh, most of the donors are from abroad. Most of the grant comes from international other big organization, and they have this certain policy like the KPIs. What KPIs they have to have, like 10% people from the trans community, or 10% people from the LGBT community. For the sake of meeting that KPI, they just do this circular. They often come to us like, hey, we need 10 transgender people for this particular workshop. Hey, we need 20 queer people for this particular seminar. And this really do not changing anything. Rather, what happens is the trans people go to this workshop and they get a stipend. Like for each workshop, maybe they're getting 1,000 Bangladeshi taka, and they sort of think that, oh, okay, we go to workshop for the sake of this stipend. They're not the incentive of learning things, of being skilled, so that you can earn money by using that skill, by employment. The incentive gets lower. They just think that the things that the NGO they to because the NGO has no follow up. Once the training is gone, it's gone. I mean, they're in their report. They can show that, well, we have reached our KPI. We have trained 10% transgender people. So that's sort of, I feel like this KPIs of the donor organizations. This is very harmful. Not having particular or sufficient follow up, like what's happening with these people who are skilled, why you are not scoping them job, um, like having sustainable outcome is very important, that I notice lacks very much. And this is the reason I am very much critical of NGOs. My organization is not an NGO. I call my organization a community organization, and we even do not have any non-profit registration. We have a trade license, and we are sort of trying to cater it as a how can we cater revenue model and be a social enterprise. Like we have handicraft sector or section where we try to sell handicrafts in Bangladesh and in abroad as well, so that the money can go to the worker, transgender worker. That sort of flow. Because the how these NGOs work is not sustainable, because you never know when the grant is coming and when it's not. And if the grant is not coming, the work gets postponed. There's no project. So this project based work, I am very much not a fan of it. And I feel like this is only to show that, oh, well, we're inclusive, like show, hey, we have transgender representation, but in in reality it's not enough. Yeah.
No,
Sorry,
I
I have
think
spoke
that's
so much.
No, I think it's really helpful. And particularly to hear, I think one of the big points you mentioned was that importance of people understanding that intersectionality, right? So, it's even, thinking about it now, like a lot of the things that are run for LGBTQI people, queer is run by men. So there's still those kind of layers of like isolation potentially, even within that space. I guess what I particularly like to ask is, what are those, for a lot of people, maybe this is a hopeful way to think about it, but a lot of people, I think, like, for example, if I'm saying I'm working in an NGO, say I'm, from Australia, and I'm coming into Bangladesh, and I'm really passionate about telling a story. Perhaps I've got somebody I want to tell a story of, but people can be a bit, I guess, nervous, like unsure of how to start the conversation, unsure of where the red lines are, what should I do, and I don't. And so they end up just not telling the story because it's like too complicated. So I'm interested in what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was in that space? Like what's a way to start the conversation? What are some things that you should do or questions you should ask? And what are some things that are not okay to ask as well, that just stick away from those?
Yeah. Right. So it's very important. Yes, like as you say, like a lot of people they're unsure if they can talk the actual thing. Like what I noticed is in my country we are we whenever we answer something there's something in our head about the political perspective. Also, I think we have this historical thing of being uh like colonized. What is inside us is I found it somehow as my observation. We have this thing of people pleasing, so we sort of do not want to actually say the real stuff like, hey, I think my government is not ensuring my rights. So they're very much afraid of talking about this. Rather, you will see most of them, they're like, yeah, I am happy my government gave me voting rights in 2019. And they are very much afraid to, yeah, talk about the real struggle they go through.
Right.
And about their identity. The more you will go to the middle class, higher middle class, and the higher class people, you will see there's a lot of socio-economic uh, the issues for that things which uh, for which they are very much afraid to come out. So in that case, maybe ask if they don't feel comfortable, maybe before having that storytelling session or having that interview or any sort of thing, I think it's important to have a connection with the people who are doing the interview and the people who are giving, like these two people question, the
Mm-hmm.
people who is questioning and people who are answering, having a sort of trust between them. Like maybe just
Mm-hmm.
have a normal conversation without notepad or camera or anything, just hey, just normal, so that they can feel sort of trust in them, like hey, okay, I think I can talk my real struggle with them. If and secondly, if they feel, and of course make sure taking consent from them, if they're okay using their name, if they're okay using their pronouns and their pictures, this sort of basic stuff. And another thing, I mean, when I used to do this, as I said, I used to do a lot of baseline surveys. So I didn't do this survey I used to just casually go to the parks, and sometimes they're like, hey, I don't have time to talk to you. And then I'm like, okay, I'll wait for you. You do your work. And then when you have free time, maybe we can talk. So this is how it's sort of, and then I learned their language, uh, the Ulti Bhasha. They have, it's like it's not in written form. It's very secret language, but I sort of have this very they're like they really love it, like that I'm in general they do not like it, like cishet people talking learning their language, but they taught me because they trusted me, and that sort of do the bonding between me and them. And also I realized that whenever I'm going to their hubs in the slum to work with them in their house, in general, I changed my outfit. Literally, like from 2019, I just wear very, very normal salwar kameez. I do not use much makeup just to, like I think that really matters. If you are booted and suited and you go to their hub, they're not going to be, they're going, this is very intimidating, right? So, so I think that
That's a great way to say it. Treat it like an intimate date. Do.
well,
No, it's
yeah,
a good point to not, also stand out, right?
Yes, yes. So yeah, not making them intimidating, right? I mean, if
Mm,
you there, it feels intimidating, the whole environment, they're not going to be their original self. So those
mm,
really helped me to come up with the real stories, um, because there's a lot of, it's like, oh my god, it's literally blew my mind every time. I'm like, oh my god, why don't we know this? If you knew this, they are the marginalizations, these issues should have been solved like years ago. Right. So, and then, yeah, so the whole environment, if they are coming to a place, like, sometimes sometimes we got invitation in programs in very big hotels, like maybe Hotel Sheraton or Westin, where they feel, not comfortable to come or something, so we make sure in the security section they're not disrespected, they are respected, this sort of thing, maybe not asking them
mm,
many questions. What I have noticed before, that every time there's a trans, I mean, me look at my privileges being a cis woman, just they're literally making me pass through the security section, but when there's a trans person, they started to ask a lot of questions. So
mm,
those sort of makes them, I think, disrespected.
mm,
So yeah, we try to make sure that, so if they are coming to any office, like, yeah, maybe
mm.
big offices, make sure the security section is more sensitized, and
That's a
also
really good
making.
point because you don't handle it, so you might not realize that other people
Yes.
will face it.
Yes, yes. And also they get a lot of stares. Like a lot of people are literally staring at them, like, uh not taking, I mean, look, they are human beings. So
Mm,
before maybe inviting them over this sort of environment where most of the people are cis heterosexual people, maybe have a group session with the cishet colleagues, sharing, hey, we will have some transgender guests today. Um, do not, like, do not do the stairs, or do not disrespect them. Do sort of this small talk with them, so that they are also comfortable having the guest,
mm,
this sort of thing. Sometimes I see that, well, maybe you are being very sensitized and not asking them inappropriate questions, but maybe some other colleagues were asking very like, hey,
mm,
I mean, that might happen. So this talk is very important. And
mm,
finally, the washroom. So every time we they even they, when they get hired in a workplace, what we see that there's, I mean, we cannot really change the architecture of the big offices or anywhere, right? And most of the offices, workplace, they have only male and female washroom, and we cannot actually make a whole new washroom for the trans people. So what we try to do is we talk to the people, like, hey, um, when a trans person is comfortable using a women's washroom, meaning they are trans women, right, and they're comfortable with that, um, are you okay with that? Or like, do you think, don't you think that deserve this basic, like,
mm,
choosing what type of washroom they're comfortable with? And they're like, yeah,
mm,
I think so, yes, okay. The women are like, the cis women are like, okay, yeah, there should be. Same goes with men as well. So this type of conversation is very important for both the cis people and the trans people as well, because the cis people,
mm,
they might feel uncomfortable as well. So making sure everything's okay, or else it becomes very uncomfortable. The trans people, they're confused which washroom they should go to,
mm,
and I even had a lot of heard that lot of incident where trans people couldn't go to washroom in the section. They have to, go to the public washroom outside the workplace, and this horrible. That makes me remind me of those time, like how when the black people was very much
mm,
the racism in America. I used to hear a lot. We have a lot of
mm,
movies on that, right? Like how they couldn't
mm,
use white women's washroom. Yeah, so this sort of thing. So washroom is very important, and having this type of conversation with
mm.
people.